everybody, welcome back to College with TK. I am TK Ness, and this channel is what I'd like to call the International Student Diaries. It's all things being an international student, all things studying abroad, and today's video is a very important video. It's very informative, so let's get straight into it. So in the past few weeks, I've been getting quite a few DMs about how I got into Berklee, asking what the process is like. So today I will be highlighting that process of how to get accepted into Berklee. And there are three main things that we have to consider. That is the online application, the audition process, and the interview. I'll be covering every single one of these three things separately, and then afterwards giving you some of my personal advice from my experience and from the things that I've observed from other students to help you better your chances of getting accepted and also then better your chances of securing a scholarship. So let's go. Number one is the online application. I have put a link in the description that will take you straight to the online application. And on this online application form, they will be asking you a few key things. They'll be asking you for some personal details, of course, your name, your address, your email address, a way to communicate with you on the progress of your application. And then they'll be also asking you what your principal instrument is, and that's the instrument that you will be auditioning with and taking lessons with. And then there is a section where they ask you about your audition preferences, so if you wanna audition online or audition in person. And then there's also a section that is optional. Okay, here's my advice for the online application. Number one, it's got to do with your principal instrument. So as someone who is a multi-instrumentalist such as myself, someone who plays more than one instrument, let's say you play keys, you play bass, you play guitar, you sing as well, you play drums. This is probably the most difficult thing to decide on, because you have this thing in your head that's like, oh my gosh, I'm comfortable in this instrument, but I also want to learn more about this instrument. And yeah, I promise you, I understand the struggle. But one advice I could give you is that you should choose firstly the instrument you're most comfortable in, because there's always improvements that you can make, there's always more that you can learn in it. Also the one that you feel like you express yourself in the most, one that you know that if you think of writing a song, you think of like sitting at this instrument. And then also the one that you can get the most preparation in. So if you play bass, right, but you don't actually have your own bass guitar, or if you play the keys but you don't have access to a piano that often, then maybe you should really reconsider what instrument you'll be auditioning with, because you need to put in quite a bit of practice before the audition so that you make sure that you are comfortable and actually ready to perform for them. So those are the things you should consider when you are choosing what your principal instrument will be. And then the second part would be the optional parts of the online application. My advice is that you do them. If you are someone who needs a scholarship, if you are someone who needs funding, any part of an application that says optional is not really optional. That's how they separate the students who get scholarships from the students who don't get scholarships, because those who go the extra mile are most likely the students who are going to put in extra work once they get accepted, and therefore are more deserving of the scholarship funding. So what I would recommend is that you do the essay, and that on the additional materials you add some recordings of stuff that you've done. Even if it's a rough recording, it doesn't have to be something extremely professional, but just something that will make them hear all the work that you've been putting in. Maybe one of your best performances, you can also upload them there. I think they've actually put in an extra part to the application now where you can actually submit a portfolio with your application. It's something that has come in very recently. I will also put in a link in the description to, if you want to go in and check what the requirements are for that. But I actually did not have to put in a portfolio, and there wasn't a portfolio section when I applied. So that's something completely new. You can read about it in the links in the description. A frequently asked question I got in my DMs was about the application fee. So once you submit the online application, you have to pay the application fee. And I know for our international students, actually not even only international students, it is very expensive. I'm not gonna lie, the applications are not cheap. And unfortunately, because Berklee has an independent application process, it's not like through a central system like all the other universities. You can't request an application fee waiver, which means you can't request not to pay the fee for whatever specific reasons you might have. Unfortunately, you have to pay the application fee for your application to be processed. So the only advice I have is that before you start your application process, weigh out what your options are to actually pay for this application. Maybe you can do a fundraiser to get people to help you to get the funds to actually apply. So that's like a whole thing in itself. And so that takes us to number 2. Number 2 is the audition process. This is probably the process that makes people very, very nervous, because this means that you actually have to perform for people. It means that you actually have to be on the spot, and it's something that you do once and you can't really change how you do it once it's done. But let me tell you, with good preparation and with good planning, you definitely cannot fumble this part. So the audition has a few parts to it. You have to have a prepared piece, you have to do improvisation, they also do like an ear test, an oral test, and then there will also be a reading test. So you'll have to actually sight read some music. If you're a singer, you'll have to sight sing. If you are a drummer, they'll give you some rhythms to sight read, and they might also make you sight sing as well, because they want to test your melodies. And when it comes to improv, they will play you like some chord progressions, and you have to do like something cool over that. Whatever you want, whatever you feel is comfortable, you'll do over that. And that basically is a test of your musicality. Can you listen to chord changes? Can you feel the rhythm? Can you feel the beats? The oral test, they'll basically be playing some chords, and you have to say whether they are major, minor, diminished, augmented. And there are many ways to practice that. There are videos available on YouTube that you can use to practice. I'll also add them in the description below. And they didn't test me on intervals, but maybe they will in another. Maybe they might change it up and ask you for intervals. They might play 2 notes and ask you, what is the interval between them. You have to say like it's a major second, it's a minor seventh, so on and so forth. I'll also add some more videos in the description below about oral testing. And then the biggest part, the prepared piece, that part is, I think, most people's favorite part, because that's the one you can prepare for the most. That's the one that you know exactly how it's gonna go when you get into the audition. So choose a piece that you're comfortable with. Don't try and do jazz if you're not a jazz musician. Just because you think that Berklee is a jazz school doesn't mean you have to do a jazz piece. Doesn't mean you have to perform a jazz song. Choose something that you're comfortable with, that will also show the adjudicators that you actually are proficient in your instrument. It shows them that you have great technique, that you've been playing for a while, that you've also practiced, right? So when you get your audition date, I think it's about 6 weeks. They give you your audition date about 6 weeks before the actual audition. Before you send through that application, you should know what song you're going to do. You should really think about it before you send through your application. Be really 100% sure about what you want to do and how you want to go about tackling this entire process of going to Berklee, because it's not something that you want to do in a rush. It's not something you want to do last minute. Especially if you're an international student, you know that you definitely want to get a scholarship. This is something you have to put a lot of effort into. If you've come this far in this video, thank you so much for watching so far. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you that we are almost at 100 subscribers. So can you please with the cherry on top, pretty please with the cherry on top, click that subscription button right there. Yeah, let's keep it going. Then we have the final part number 3, the interview. This part is actually not that intimidating. You know, when you hear the word interview, it feels like, you know, you'll be sitting there and they'll be asking you all these serious questions. It's really not that deep. They literally just ask you about your musical background. They ask you, why do you want to come to the school? You know, the basic questions that they ask you about, that they'd ask you in a school interview. I'll also put a link in the description to the Berklee website where they give you some of the practice questions. And my advice there would be just practice. Do a mock interview with someone. Ask someone to ask you the questions and you answer them. Be natural about it. Don't practice too much as well, because, you know, it's very easy to tell when someone has practiced their answers. And also, even with those list of questions that they have on the website, it depends on the interviewer. If they feel like asking you a question that's not there, you just have to be able to talk about yourself and be able to present yourself well. So if you are someone who has a bit of anxiety with that, practice with friends and family. Ask them to interview you. Ask them to ask you questions about your musical journey. Maybe write down a little bit on a piece of paper and think about the few things that you want Berklee to know about you from your interview. So just write that down and find a way to present that in your interview. So those are the 3 parts of the whole process that it takes to get accepted into Berklee. Obviously, in this video, I didn't go extremely into depth, but I can do more videos. I can even make this into a series where I speak about how to get accepted into Berklee, all the nuances, all the things that you can really, all the nitty-gritty things you can look at. That is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the love that I've been getting from the videos. Thank you to all my friends and family who've been sharing. Thank you to all my friends that I'm making here at Berklee who have been, you know, keeping up with my channel. I really hope that this video really helps somebody out there. And yeah, don't be shy to check out my social media. Follow me, DM me if you have a question that you are maybe too scared to ask in the comments. And love you. Peace. I'm out. Bye.